Once thriving with opportunity and bustling streets, America's boomtowns are now filled with empty buildings and faded dreams. Once symbols of progress, they now stand as haunting reminders of rapid economic rise followed by sudden collapse. How did these once promising places lose their spark so dramatically? Watch until the end to find out. The story of these boomtowns reveals how a city's rise can often hold the seeds of its own decline. Let's start with one of the most iconic examples: Detroit. Detroit is one of the most dramatic examples of urban decline in American history. Once a thriving industrial powerhouse, Detroit was home to 1.8 million people in 1950 and one of the wealthiest cities in America, thanks largely to its dominance in automobile manufacturing. Today, it has barely 630,000 residents, with over 30% living below the poverty line. Detroit's golden era spanned the 1940s to the 1960s, when it was an economic magnet, much like Silicon Valley today, attracting Americans seeking good jobs, business opportunities, and a place to build a future. In just 2 decades, from 1910 to 1930, Detroit's population nearly tripled as people flocked to the city. However, by the 1960s, cracks began to appear. Some attribute Detroit's decline to the 1967 riots, but population loss had already started years before, hinting that the riots were a symptom, not the cause. Detroit's decline was multifaceted. Facing a shrinking population and budget deficits, Detroit raised taxes to sustain a growing public workforce, just as the auto industry was burdened by costly union contracts and facing global competition. High taxes, coupled with rising crime rates, pushed people out. By the 1970s, Detroit had become known as the murder capital of the US, with violent crime surging. As residents left, abandoned homes and businesses became targets for arson, creating scenes of devastation. In 1984 alone, over 800 fires were recorded in the city. Detroit's story is now a cautionary tale for other American cities seeing population declines, like New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, as they grapple with high taxes and rising crime. While these cities are far from Detroit's collapse, Detroit's experience proves that urban decline can happen faster than expected. East St. Louis. Another classic American boom and bust story is East St. Louis, Illinois, a city that rose to prominence through industry but has struggled with severe economic decline. In the early 20th century, East St. Louis as a manufacturing and shipping hub due to its strategic location on the Mississippi River, just across from St. Louis, Missouri. Its access to railroads and river transportation made it a prime location for industries such as meatpacking, steel, and railcar manufacturing. By the 1920s, East St. Louis boasted a population of nearly 75,000, a vibrant economy, and a reputation as a working-class powerhouse. However, similar to other industrial cities, East St. Louis's prosperity began to unravel by the mid-20th century. The city's economic decline was accelerated by suburbanization, automation, and deindustrialization. Manufacturing jobs that once fueled East St. Louis's economy either left for cheaper locations or disappeared due to automation. With fewer jobs available, residents began to move away, resulting in a population decrease that eroded the city's tax base. At the same time, East St. Louis was burdened with high levels of racial segregation and poverty, leading to tensions that further destabilized the community. By the 1960s and 1970s, East St. Louis was a city in crisis. Public services were severely underfunded, schools were overcrowded and under-resourced, and basic infrastructure began to deteriorate. The city's finances reached a breaking point in the 1980s, resulting in municipal bankruptcy. East St. Louis Police Department was slashed, and city workers faced massive layoffs. Crime and unemployment surged as the city struggled to provide even essential services, cementing East St. Louis Louis's image as a symbol of urban decay. The population of East St. Louis continued to plummet, declining from its peak of 82,000 in 1950 to around 18,000 today. Many areas of the city are now dotted with abandoned buildings, vacant lots, and dilapidated structures. Despite occasional efforts to revitalize the city through federal and state programs, East St. Louis has faced difficulty attracting new businesses or retaining its younger population. Today, East St. Louis remains one of the poorest cities in America, with a poverty rate of over 40%. However, community leaders and residents have continued to push for change, advocating for more sustainable economic opportunities, better education, and improved public safety. Youngstown, Ohio. Youngstown, Ohio exemplifies the classic American boomtown, rising swiftly on the strength of its steel industry and then experiencing a precipitous decline as manufacturing collapsed. Founded in the early 19th century, Youngstown evolved from a modest settlement into an industrial powerhouse. By the early 20th century, Youngstown Sheet and Tube, alongside other steel giants, transformed the city into one of the top steel producers in the United States, fostering a vibrant community and a burgeoning middle class. During the height of production, Youngstown's population soared to about 170,000, drawing immigrants and workers from across the country in search of good jobs and stable livelihoods. The steel industry was both the economic heart and the social backbone of Youngstown. Entire neighborhoods, businesses, and cultural institutions were built around the mills, creating a close-knit, working-class community. The prosperity generated by steel led to investments in schools, housing, and local infrastructure, reinforcing Youngstown's status as a true boomtown. By the mid-20th century, the city's skyline was marked by smokestacks and factory towers, and steel production was at an all-time high. However, the seeds of decline were already being sown. By the 1970s, global competition and technological changes began to erode the profitability of American steel mills. In 1977, the city suffered what residents came to call Black Monday, when Youngstown Sheet and Tube abruptly closed, resulting in the loss of over 5,000 jobs overnight. This closure was only the beginning, as other local steel companies soon followed suit, sparking a devastating wave of unemployment, poverty, and population loss. Youngstown's population fell sharply, with residents leaving in search of work elsewhere, leading to a decline that the city has yet to fully recover from. Today, Youngstown has fewer than 60,000 residents, with large portions of the city characterized by vacant properties and abandoned buildings. Median household income is notably low, well below the national average, and unemployment remains a persistent challenge. Despite efforts to diversify the economy and revitalize the city, such as the establishment of the Youngstown Business Incubator and incentives to attract new businesses, the impacts of deindustrialization are still deeply felt. Youngstown's story serves as a powerful reminder of the vulnerability of single-industry towns and the far-reaching impacts of industrial decline on communities. For those who remain, Youngstown is a city with deep roots and a resilient spirit, though it bears the scars of the boom and bust cycle that defines many American cities that once relied solely on manufacturing. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.